Happy Victory Monday, everybody. Welcome into this Monday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm Andy Herman. Thanks so much, as always, for taking some time to join me here on YouTube. Got a really fun game to break down, a 30-16 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. I know the Eagles are not exactly one of the best teams in the NFL right now, but they came in with a darn good defense, still in the playoff race, and really with their quarterback and their coaches' jobs potentially on the line, you know that they were playing for a lot, and Green Bay really took care of business for the vast majority of the game. A couple plays that went a little bit awry, which we'll get to in just a moment, but a lot of really good things came out of this game as well. And while there's a lot I want to get to, I want to start by just taking a timeout and pausing for a moment and just respecting the amazingness that is Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams right now, because there's a lot of really good football players. There's a lot of really good things going on at Lambeau Field and Lombardi Avenue and with the Packers organization right now. But what Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are doing right now is nothing short of spectacular, special, amazing. Put whatever adjective in that you want. And I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I just want to take time to pause time and to marinate on it and to appreciate it, because they are playing incredible football, starting with Aaron Rodgers, who was near flawless in this game. And we can talk about the accolades for both of these players, whether it's the 400 touchdown pass, which, fittingly goes to Davante Adams, whether it's 1,000 yards for Davante Adams, whether it's the first quarterback ever to throw 35 touchdowns in 5 different seasons, or whether it's Davante Adams joining Marvin Harrison, Terrell Owens, and Randy Moss and Jerry Rice as the only receivers in NFL history to have, 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in their first 10 games of the season. Both of these players are special, special players. And I just want to take time to recognize what they're doing on the field. Rodgers barely threw, incomplete passes. The ones that he did, MVS had to drop down the field. Lazard had a drop. One went off Davante Adams' hands. He was just in a zone in this game. In fact, I think the only critique he had of this game of himself was that he had ran into a sack where I think he took a 1-yard loss on a run. He thought he got past it by a yard. He didn't. It ends up counting as a sack, which he felt really bad about because the offensive line is really focused on having 1 sack or less. He runs into a sack, and that was the big thing that he kind of critiqued himself on after the game. For Davante Adams, what more is there to say? Yes, he is a skilled magician at the line of scrimmage with his routes, the complexity, his get off at the line, all of it. But he doesn't get enough credit for his contested catch ability, and he showed that today. The play by the goal line, the play in the back of the end zone, the 2-yard bomb where Rodgers threw from basically the negative 9-yard line in the back of the end zone. Those type of plays are just so uncommon and so special. And credit Matt LaFleur for putting the system in that really lets these two artists shine and really perform their craft to the best of their ability. And was this game perfect? It was not. But those two players, Aaron Rodgers, arguably the MVP of the league right now, and you can split hairs between Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, whichever way that you'd like, but he's right there. And no matter what way you look at it, and arguably the best player in the league right now, Aaron Rodgers. And Davante Adams, easily, in my opinion, the best receiver in football. The only thing that has his numbers a little bit down, maybe in comparison to a couple others, is the fact that he missed a couple games. He would be blowing by everyone in yards and touchdowns and catches, everything. Had he been healthy for those, for the entirety of the season. His last 16 games, you look at it statistically, that he was healthy for the entirety of the game, are ridiculous. He is unguardable one-on-one. He is a gravity magnet in zone, as we saw against the Bears a week ago when 5 defenders went towards him on a play to open up Bobby Tonyan for a touchdown. He's doing everything out on the field. And I'll be the first to say, too, over the past few seasons, the one thing that I would consistently knock Davante Adams down would be run blocking. He's still not great, but he's giving a much more effort in that regards as well, where it's not negatives in run blocking anymore. It's mostly neutral grades. It's not positives, but he was a negative run blocker in the past. This year, he's been almost completely neutral as a run blocker, so he's improved in that area as well. There's just almost nothing lacking from either player's games. Rodgers is playing much more aggressive. He's playing from the pocket. He's throwing down the middle of the field. It's just beautiful, beautiful football. So just take a minute, take a timeout, and appreciate this greatness right now, because while Davante is still in his prime and should have, a handful of really strong seasons left, Aaron Rodgers is age 37, right? In 3 years, we're either going to be looking at a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, probably past his prime, or maybe a different quarterback in Green Bay. This time will go fast. My point being, enjoy it. Enjoy the hell out of it, because these two are absolute artists out on the field who are playing at the top of their game, who are performing their craft at just a magnificent level, and I think it deserves to be appreciated. On the flip side, defensive side of the ball, and really kind of as the team as a whole, you're starting to see some of these second-year players that are really stepping up, whether it's Elgton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Keke, just that entire group, Darnell Savage, that entire group is really starting to step up in their second year. And it's a real big reason why you're seeing some of the progress from this team as well. And I want to talk about the defensive side of the ball with Kingsley Keke and Rashawn Gary. I'm going to be really interested to look back at this game. I did rewatch it on the game tape, but I want to, go back and watch, or on the TV tape. I want to go back and watch the All-22 and really focus on those two players as well, because I thought Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Keke brought a lot of juice in this game. I actually tweeted out at one point that I thought Kingsley Keke looked a little bit like Mike Daniels in his prime today. While I was doing the audio podcast with Alex Struff earlier, Mike Daniels actually replied to me and said he agreed 100% that he thought that Kingsley Keke looked good out there as well. So high praise from Mike Daniels. But I love seeing the juice and the energy from those two players. And we've talked about, Za'Darius Smith and Kenny Clark and Preston Smith being the guys that really need to step up and get more pressure. And all of them had some flash plays today, but you love seeing it from the younger players as well. And I thought Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Keke really stepped up, became more active, and you could see just the energy and the juice and the effort from those two players. And I thought that was a really good step in the right direction for the defense. I also thought you just saw some increased intensity from the defense, and it was interesting. After the game, Za'Darius Smith mentioned that Za'Darius and Preston and Kenny Clark talked to Mike Pettin this week. They wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, especially at the end of games when they were having leads, so that those guys could hunt up front and get to the quarterback like they did a season ago. And I think you saw some of that from the defense this week. I think you saw a little bit more aggression. And I think what happens in those situations is, as a player, if you go to a coach and say something and they agree to it, now the onus is on you a little bit. You have to take ownership of that. And I thought you saw a little bit more juice and some intensity from this defense today. And yes, they gave up the big touchdown on the 4th and 18 play, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But overall, it's a defense that only allowed 10 points. Remember, 6 points were from the punt return for a touchdown. So they allowed 10 points. They had 7 sacks. They had an interception, under 300 total yards. I know the Eagles' offense is bad, really bad, but this is probably the most complete game by the defense all season long, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come, that they are peaking at the right time and heading in the right direction. Let's talk about those 2 negative plays really briefly, because let's be real. It had not been for the punt return for the touchdown, and had it not been for the 4th and 18 play, this is a blowout win for the Packers, a complete game all the way around. But those 2 plays did happen, and it does feel a little bit just going out, through the Packers game this entire season, where they get these big leads and they don't have the ability to go for the kill shot. They have the ability, they haven't been able to do it. And I talked to Alex Struff on the podcast today too, where it's like in Mortal Kombat, where you've got the player just staggered and the finish him comes across the screen, and the Packers don't know how to perform their finishing maneuver to end the game and end the fight. That's what they're lacking right now. They're getting the leads, they're getting ahead. Now they just have to figure out their finishing move to just end teams and not keep it close towards the end of games. Because let's be honest, right? After the 4th and 18, a 3 and out, and then a punt return for a touchdown, and another 3 and out, the Chiefs were at their own 40-yard line with about 3.5-ish minutes left, down 7 points with all the momentum. In a game that Green Bay pretty much dominated, they have the opportunity to go down and score. And by the way, my guess, knowing Doug Peterson, he's going for 2 if they get the touchdown at the end of that drive. So if they allow points at the end of that drive and bleed the clock with 3.5 minutes left and go for 2, Green Bay's at a potential position where they could have actually lost that game. Kudos to the defense for coming up with a couple big plays. There was a sack and then a pass breakup by Jair Alexander. They get off the field, a 77-yard touchdown run by Aaron Jones, and it's all over. But you want to see this team have that killer instinct at the end to go for the jugular and finish them when they have the chance. They didn't do that today. They got away with it against a bad Eagles team, but that is certainly a situation and a scenario where they have to improve upon going forward, or when they have teams down, they finish them. We don't want to see another NFC Championship game Seahawks situation where because they can't have the ability to finish a team, they allow a team to stick around and come back and win and break Packer fans' hearts again. We've been there too often. There's got to be a team that figures out how to finish off and have a crushing blow towards the end of the game. Quick look at the injury list. A few too many players that went out in this game and did not return. You hate to see that. Jace Sternberger, Tyler Ervin, Billy Wynn, Raven Green, and Equinemius St. Brown all left the game and did not return. So those will be players that we'll have to keep an eye on as this week goes along and the injury reports come out and so on and so forth. You're just hoping for no long-term injuries. You can probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, get by Detroit without those players, but you want to stay healthy. And certainly when playoffs come around, hopefully all of those players don't have anything long-term that would keep them out of the playoff race. Speaking of which, certainly some interesting twists and turns. Saints come up with a win, a very close game down to the wire with the Atlanta Falcons. However, the Seattle Seahawks lose, bumping Green Bay up to the number 2 spot, of course, 9-3 on the season. It'll be really interesting to see how this playoff picture kind of, finishes out through the remainder of the season. The Saints have a very, very difficult game with Kansas City left on their schedule. They've got a couple of road games. So this will be an interesting situation. They also have a game with Minnesota left, which Minnesota right now in the playoffs picture. They are in the last playoff spot with Arizona losing and Minnesota barely winning against the Jaguars in overtime. Minnesota's in that last spot, so that game's going to be very important against the New Orleans Saints. And that'll be interesting to see. It might make for strange bedfellows and having to cheer for the Vikings against the Saints so that Green Bay could get that bye. But I think there's a good chance if Green Bay can win out in their final games, which they'll be favored in all of them, that they'll have the ability to, get that number 1 seed, which would be huge. So we'll see. But if nothing else, they put themselves in a better position for that number 2 seed with the Seahawks loss on Sunday. Last but not least, if you haven't had a chance, I highly, highly recommend going and listening to Matt LaFleur in his press conference, specifically the end of his press conference, how he talked about the 77-yard run by Aaron Jones and how MVS is blocking downfield. And then he just ended it with how this team is performing as a team. Matt LaFleur is he's an incredible coach. And I don't say that lightly. I know it's early. I know we're in year 2. I know he's won 1 playoff game. I could not be more impressed with who Matt LaFleur is as a coach. Nothing shocks me in the NFL. And, you can never say that you expect a Super Bowl or anything like that because it's just so hard to win in this league. But there's a part of me that would be very surprised and shocked if Matt LaFleur doesn't win a Super Bowl at some point in his tenure in Green Bay. Everything about Matt LaFleur has exceeded my expectations. How he works with the media, how he's built this the culture within the team, how his players believe in him, how he's worked with Aaron Rodgers, how he's built the offense. Just everything has come up aces. And again, I think he has the potential to be something really, really special. And I could not be more impressed with who he is as a coach through his first almost 2 seasons as head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Go and listen to his press conference and tell me by the end of it that you don't want to run through a wall and go play for Matt LaFleur in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be fun to watch how Matt LaFleur's career goes in Green Bay, and he's off to one hell of a start. Enjoy your Victory Monday, everybody. Make sure to check out Alex Struff and I on today's audio version of the Pack-A-Day podcast. Of course, I'll be right back here tomorrow on YouTube. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.